A landlord in Oregon had a horrific experience with a tenant who abused the eviction moratorium to stay in her property rent-free. And in Pittsburgh, a landlord in a nursing home is being fined by the city $15,000 for not fixing the heat. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have two interesting articles for you today, and one's coming out of the state of Oregon and the other one's coming out of Pittsburgh. Now, obviously, the one coming out of Oregon, we got to keep in mind Oregon is one of the more tenant-friendly places throughout the entire country. So landlords there were just, getting their butts handed to them because of the eviction moratorium going on, okay? They had no way to get these tenants out of their properties, and this landlord in this article really suffered badly because of it. Now, in the second article I have, it's coming out of Pittsburgh, and it's really going over the story of a tenant who, is fighting because the landlord won't fix the heat. But when I read a little bit further in the article, what it turns out is the landlord is extremely elderly and confined to a nursing home and is having a very difficult time, affording the repairs. And, this lady has been living for free in this place for years. Now, before I get into these two articles, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think, okay? What do you want to see on this channel? I'm working to keep bringing you articles about the eviction moratorium, rent control, the housing crisis and rental shortage, and anything else that might be of interest to landlords. So, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I've been throwing articles out there trying to see what's sticking and what you guys are interested in. And, it's not easy, so give me some ideas. So the first article I have today, it's coming from KEZI.com, and it says, financially, it's been horrific. Eugene landlord claims eviction moratorium misuse. And let's see what it says. A landlord of a rental home in Eugene is sharing her experience after she claims a group of people squatted at her property for several months against her wishes under the eviction moratorium rules. The woman, who wishes to remain anonymous, said it wasn't until she won a recent civil suit against them that they were forced to leave the property. Her brother, Donald Dupree, said there was plenty of controversy during the group's time there, including several negative encounters with neighbors. He said even though the group is gone, the financial impact is still felt due to the damages they left behind. Yeah, and I'm not surprised, but you know what it sounds like is that I think Oregon's eviction moratorium is done now. I'm not exactly sure, but it sounds like that when that the eviction protections for these tenants were finally lifted, she was able to get them out of her property. And if they weren't paying for that whole time, it's bad, and she just had to get them out. He said there were thousands of dollars in damages to the plumbing and electrical system, in addition to the legal fees. It's been really traumatizing for my sister, Dupree said. Financially, it's been horrific. His sister said she's roughly $15,000 in the hole, and that could increase. Yeah, and keep in mind that we're not just talking about lost rent, okay? Think of all these damages that they just listed off. Electrical issues, plumbing issues, damage to the property itself. We're talking at thousands and thousands of extra dollars for those people who couldn't be evicted because of this eviction moratorium. So even if they were able to get some sort of rental assistance, that's not going to cover all those damages. And even if they kept the security deposit, if they even had a security deposit, that probably wouldn't cover all the damages either. So, this landlord's just straight out of luck, and there's nothing they can do. Even though the rental assistance came in and made up a part of what she was out over a year of rent, and this is her income, Dupree said. Dupree said this has sparked their desire to change to the eviction rules. We need a process to be able to distinguish between the people that truly do need help. Believe me, I know people do, but there are also those that are abusing the system and getting away with it, he said. And that is one of my hugest gripes, okay? there was no way that we could actually tell who really needed the help from the eviction moratorium. Okay, any person could just declare, "Hey, I suffered financially due to the pandemic," and then they instantly were eligible for the protections. Instead, there should be a burden of proof that is put upon the tenant to prove that you actually need the protections of the eviction moratorium. If not, then you don't get it. Okay, you don't get any eviction protections. But the truth of the matter is there shouldn't be an eviction moratorium in the first place. So even that would be a ridiculous point. But the burden of proof should be on the tenant in order to get rental assistance. And I think that would be a much better idea. So going into the second article, and this is an interesting article, and coming from a more tenant's perspective in it, I'm not really, normally covering articles like this, but I thought the story of the landlord was pretty interesting in here too. And it's coming from WESA.FM, and it says, "Nowhere to go. Landlord fined thousands, but one McKeesport family is still without heat." And it's coming out of the Pittsburgh area. And let's get into it. Patricia LaChapa fears this winter will be much like the last one. She, her husband, and their adult children spent the bulk of their time in the living room and dining room, with 2 space heaters running and a blanket hung in the entryway to keep the warmth in. That's where things stand for 14 months after LaChapa called the Allegheny County Health Department to complain about what was then a lack of heat and water, plumbing and electrical problems, holes in walls, and an unsecured awning in her side of McKeesport duplex. "It scares me because I love my kids and my husband very much," LaChapa said on a November day as she sniffled away tears. "And to live another year like this?" So, yeah, you read the first 3 paragraphs of this article, right? And you're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe that the landlord is leaving this poor tenant in such a bad situation. I mean, this landlord must be awful. Well, there's something that is not being said, and I really don't like how they came off to put this tenant in this sympathetic position. So I'm going to skip over a little bit of this, right, and I'm going to get down to the point that is important in this article. Her landlord, though, struggles to manage his properties from a nursing home. He would happily sell the duplex under certain conditions. It's a difficult situation, and the health department current process hasn't remedied it. LaChapa's rusted out furnace remains cold as December unfolds, right? So we have a landlord who is confined to a nursing home, okay? So he is extremely elderly. And, there's no thought of, hey, this guy, he might not be able to afford to do these repairs. But let's continue because it gets a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to skip over and let's see here. The landlord, David Messenger, let her family move in. I asked her, "How much can you afford?" he recounted in a November interview. In the end, he agreed to let her live there temporarily rent-free. You can't expect somebody to pay rent for a place that's not livable. So you heard that right, okay? This landlord is not charging her any rent at all. So we have an elderly landlord confined to a nursing home, letting a lady stay in his unit rent-free. And what does she do as a favor? She calls the city health department on him, and he gets fined $15,000. That's what happens, okay? So, hey, thanks for letting me stay here, because you know what? She would have been homeless if not for this guy. And now, she's screwing him over because you're keeping me in unlivable. She moved into the place and it was unlivable. When she initially moved in, that's what this article says. So, here's the real story, right? We're not talking about a bad landlord here who was, just let the property be dilapidated, didn't make any repairs. We're talking about, okay, we had a landlord here, an elderly landlord. He had a unit that wasn't livable in the first place, right? Rather than letting this lady be homeless, he lets her move into it, right? But he can't afford to do the repairs. So he lets her stay there. She stays there for 14 months for rent-free. No, not paying a single dime. Okay, she knew there was no heat, no water in there the moment she moved in. But I guess having some sort of roof over her head wasn't enough, right? And you know what? His kind heart shouldn't be to blame. She just needs to go. She needs to go because she's not paying anything and she's costing him money at this point. So I personally believe that she should be evicted. And I think she's a piece of garbage for calling the city on him and getting him fined $15,000 and then demanding that he make these rent payment or these make these repairs when she's not even paying any rent. I mean, give me a break. What a joke, okay? And this is the kind of the garbage that we see all the time. So all I can say is that this is the kind of situation, this is the kind of article that just annoys the living heck out of me because it paints the tenant in this great light, paints the landlord as this bad guy, and he's just an elderly guy without a lot of money who was trying to help somebody out, and he got screwed in the end.